Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the press. You're welcome to the press conference of the Commonwealth Observer Group to Pakistan's 2024 general elections. My name is Temitope Kalejai, Public Relations and Engagement Officer, and I'll be chairing this press conference. On behalf of the group, I would like to thank you for coming here today. I would like to introduce to you Chairperson of the Commonwealth Observer Group, former President of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, Linford Andrews, Advisor and Head of Electoral Support Section, Dinosha Panditaratne, who is the Advisor and Head of Asia at the Commonwealth Secretariat. Dr. Jonathan will be presenting the Observer Group's interim statement, copies of which will be made available afterwards. Dr. Jonathan will now take questions from journalists. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, and on behalf of the Commonwealth Observer Group, let me sincerely thank you for the interest and for coming to listen to our preliminary statement this early afternoon. We appreciate this. Interim statement, Commonwealth Observer Group to Pakistan's 2024 general elections. Introduction. I would like to express my appreciation to you all for attending this press conference in which I will deliver the preliminary findings of the Commonwealth Observer Group, the COG. May I begin by conveying on behalf of the group appreciation to the invitation extended to observe this general election and for all the arrangements that have been made to facilitate the work of the COG by the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, ACP, and the government of Pakistan. Pakistan, as you know, is a founding and valued member of the Commonwealth family and one of the world's largest democracies. We are aware of the importance of these elections, particularly for the people of Pakistan and in general, the Commonwealth family. The group undertook its work on the basis of the principles of impartiality, non-interference, and independence as required by the Declaration of Principles for International Election Observation, and in accordance with the revised guidelines on Commonwealth election observation, which was adopted by all Commonwealth member countries in 2018. The mandate of a Commonwealth Observer Group is to consider the various factors contributing to or affecting the credibility of the especially the families of the victims, and wish a quick recovery to those injured. I commend all polling and security officials for ensuring the safety and security of polling stations and enabling the people of Pakistan to exercise their right to vote. We note the additional challenges posed by adverse weather conditions. We commend voters, polling officials, and others who brave the cold and even snowbound conditions in some areas on election day. We are cognizant of the effects of the devastating floods in 2022 when many voters lost their computerized national identity card, the CNICs. We are aware of the reports that some voters could not secure new CNICs in time to cast their ballots on election day. We also note that some polling stations were relocated a considerable distance away from their original locations, to which some voters may not have been able to travel. We encourage the National Database and Registration Authorities, NADROA, the ECP, and development agencies to continue to address such challenges. Legal environment and election administration. It is noted that the 2024 general elections took place against the background of a substantially reformed and improved legal framework initiated prior to the previous general elections in 2018. It is hoped that this reform process will continue to be met in accordance with the Constitution of Pakistan, both in letter and spirit, and the values enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter. Where the group identifies areas that the legal framework will benefit from refining, we'll make recommendations in our final report in keeping with the Commonwealth's role of election cycle approach, participation and inclusion. It is commendable that the national gender gap in registered voters was reduced from almost 13% in 2013 to 7.7%. We note also that 60 seats in the National Assembly are reserved for women. Notwithstanding these gains, the group received reports that enforcement of these codes. We will reflect further on this in our final report and recommendations that can enhance engagement and transparency in this regard. Election management systems. We are encouraged by the efforts of the Electoral Commission of Pakistan in seeking to improve election management processes through the introduction of an election management system. We note, however, that the election management system could not operate effectively as intended on election day. I will comment on this shortly in our election day observation. Our election day observation, the eve of polling. During our deployment, the group observed preparation by local election officials, including the distribution of sensitive materials and setting up of polling stations. We observed that they were generally well prepared, and we wish to commend the ACP, their staff, and temporary workers, the ad hoc staff of over 1 million personnel. The polling environment. On 8 February, our observers visited polling stations to observe the opening, voting, counting, and collation of results, following which they returned to Islamabad for debriefing and preparation of this, our preliminary report. As chairperson on election day, I also had the opportunity to visit the Election Monitoring Control Center at the ECP and the Election Security Control Center under the Ministry of Interior. While we received reports of some incidents on election day, which we will consider further in our final report, voting took place in a largely peaceful environment. Pre-poll procedures and opening of polls. We observed that pre-polling procedures were largely followed and that polling stations opened on time. Some stations experienced minor delays in opening. For the most part, they were equipped with requisite polling staff and materials. Voter turnout. The group observed that the rate of voter turnout increased significantly as the day progressed. The group will comment further on this issue in our final report. Role of polling staff and polling procedures. Polling staff were, for the most part, professional and diligent in carrying out their duties. We observed, however, that in some instances, procedures were not adhered to. The processing of voters was slow in some instances. Participation and inclusion. We observed the significant presence of youth, including young women, as ECT officials and polling agents. We commend the presence of dedicated polling stations for women to facilitate the participation of female voters. We observed that there were many female polling staff and polling agents, and that women police officers were also present among the security at some polling stations. We observed many persons with disabilities, PWDs, voting on election day. We commend all polling staff and security personnel for being proactive in assisting and granting priority to PWDs, the elderly, pregnant, and nursing mothers, although we noted that such assistance was not uniform across the country. We observed some polling stations with concrete ramps for PWDs, but also noted the absence of ramps and other means of access at many polling stations. We also noted a number of polling stations that were located above the ground floor. We encouraged the ECP to continue their important work towards fostering the inclusion of PWDs in the electoral process, including through increased voters' education on postal ballots. Role of party agents. While party or candidates' agents were present in most polling stations observed, there were isolated cases of agents not being accommodated in some polling stations during the voting process, and in addition, they could not properly observe the count. Security. Security was highly visible at all polling locations that the group visited. Security officials we observed were professional and carried out their duties diligently. Secrecy of the ballot. The layout of polling stations generally ensured that the secrecy of the ballot for the voters was assured, although the group observed that the location of CCTV cameras in some polling stations could have compromised the secrecy. Close and count. Polling stations generally close on time, and those who were within the premises at the stipulated closing time of 1700 hours were accorded the right to cast their ballot. The count at polling stations we observed was generally managed efficiently by polling staff. Results management. As during previous general elections, we noted the continued effort at promoting transparency with the display of the signed Form 45 outside each polling station after counting concluded. We note that these forms were due to be sent via the mobile phone application, but the shutdown of internet and mobile coverage compelled presiding officers to rely mainly on manual transmission of the forms. We received reports that this adversely impacted the processing of results. We will reflect on this further in our final report. Conclusion. We congratulate the people of Pakistan for their patience and determination throughout the electoral process. Notwithstanding the challenges noted, citizens turned out to exercise their right to vote on election day. We also commend all polling staff, political parties, candidates and their agents, and the security agencies for their respective roles during this electoral process. While the results process is being finalized, I call on all citizens to continue to exercise patience and restraint. It is our hope that the process will be concluded effectively and that it will reflect the will of the people. I speak from experience in calling for candidates to be magnanimous in victory and also gracious in defeat. We call on all those with grievances to address disputes through the prescribed election dispute resolution mechanism approved by the laws of Pakistan. Elections are defining moments in every democracy, and this election offers an opportunity to take forward the positive gains made in the previous cycle. We once again commend the efforts made to build on the improved legal framework from previous elections. We encourage these efforts to continue and reaffirm the Commonwealth's continuing commitment to being part of Pakistan's post-election journey. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We will now take some questions. Please state your name and organization first. And I should stress that we can only take questions related to the work of the group. Thank you. We have roving mics.
Thank you, Mr. Goodluck. I am also observer, but I am from Pakistan Observer. It's an English newspaper. So I really appreciate your participation and your monitoring and observing the entire process and visiting different cities. But there were serious concerns regarding a ban on internet. And your statement, as reported by some newspapers, that internet is not as important as voting process is. It also seemed to lend some credibility or some, justification to governments banning this fundamental right and the tool that could, justify and attest to the transparency of the elections. So how do you see that? Thank you.
Thank you. Let us take two others so I can respond to the three.
Next.
This is Ghazala Noreen from Suno TV news channel. My question is to Mr. Goodluck that Pakistan has invited international media and international observers to cover the election. That means open ground to report and to observe these elections freely. How do you say this, sir? Thank you.
One more. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ishan Yousafzai. I'm from Dunya News. Welcome to Pakistan and thanks for observing our electoral process. My question is regarding Form 45 and Form 47. There are many concerns of the candidates as well as voters that we received Form 45 and there are results. After Form 45, the results are different in Form 47, which is announced by ECP. So what's your stance on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take this three first. In fact, I was expecting the first question, but my comments on the internet. Basically, of course, you know that the issue of shutting down mobile phone was the subject of litigation in Pakistan before. And the court made a pronouncement that should not be done. That was there. But on that day, we noticed that the system was internet and mobile phone was shut down. But already we have started elections. And we appreciate the concern of everybody. Even for us who are observers, it affected us. Because our observers in the interland are supposed to give on the spot reporting with their notepads. And when you shut down internet, they cannot do that. So even before we collate our own preliminary report, they also have to return to Islamabad. So everybody knows that it affects. And technology must be used. That's the essence of technology. And that is why the electoral processes continue to improve. So nobody will say that technology is not relevant. And I did not say it was not relevant. But I said, yes, if the system shut down the internet and mobile phone, either for security reasons or for some reasons we are not privileged to know, we can still go on with the election. And I believe the elections went well to a reasonable extent. I did not say that that is a commendable thing that we will recommend for government to continue to do. No. It affects everybody, including the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, in terms of collating and processing their results. So we didn't say so. And if you listen to our report, we try to also explain. And we believe that subsequent elections, the country will go back to that level of shutting down the internet system. This affects a number of countries do similar things in some elections. But after some time, they allow the system to remain. They will now know that there will be no adverse effect on the electoral process. But Pakistan is a country, just like most other countries these days, that are suffering from terrorism and so on. So there are a number of things the security people do that if you don't understand details, you may look at it differently. But we encourage people, and that is the statement I made, that whether internet was shut down or not, let elections go on. We should not stop the election because of that. That was the encouragement. So it's just an encouraging statement that we made. We did not say, shutting down of internet or shutting down of mobile system is commendable. No, we did not say so. Then the second question talks about invitation to international observers and international journalists. Yes, the essence is for the election to be transparent. And that is what the Commonwealth believes in. Commonwealth would not go to a country where the laws and regulations will make elections not transparent. So for the country, and especially the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, to invite international journalists and national observers like the Commonwealth, that shows that they are willing to expose the electoral process to the views of the international communities to ensure transparency, credibility, and so on and so forth. So I agree with you. The third question about Form 47 or Form 45, what you're saying is that some of the figures on Form 45 and the 47 are different. Well, if they are, that means that something is not right. Because you collate at the Form 45 at the polling unit. At the polling unit, then at the district level or so, at that level from 47 or so. So the issue is supposed to be the same. But we plead that if it is not error, if it is deliberate, then people should follow the process according to the prescribed laws or in terms of election dispute resolution mechanisms available. I have not seen it, and we did not really observe it, but the number of stations we observed are few compared to the total number of voting units across the country. Yes.
Next.
Yes, this is Mateen Haider from GTV. Mr. Jonathan, you didn't touch the transmission of the results by the returning officers. Results were transmitted more than 12 hours late, and many of the returning officers made statements even that they were under tremendous pressure not to share the result to the election authorities. So this has been widely reported in the media, and you're missing this particular element. And second, I would, in 2018, Commonwealth Observer also visited Pakistan. So similar discrepancies and anomalies were reported in 2018 elections. So how you compare 2018 Commonwealth Observers' observations with the 2024? And Pakistan is member of the Commonwealth Organization. Does your report make any difference, or will this report will have some impact on election authorities in Pakistan so that the future elections may take place more transparently? So main concern is how you will address the concern of returning officers when they transmitted the election results very late by saying that they were under tremendous pressure. This particular point itself exposes the transparency of these elections. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan.
Thank you.
Wait, before you take the second one, because this is a very critical statement you have made, the issue of transparency of the process, which is one thing that always confronts international election observers, almost in fact, in most countries. You may observe elections that are reasonably free and fair in the field, but the process of collating the results from the units, along the line, especially for countries that run a presidential system, for the presidential, this is even okay because they are only parliamentary elections. But countries that run the presidential system, that we have different levels of collation, there's always allegation of figures being changed. In some cases, as the observer group, globally, you have to be mindful about reports in the papers. We are not saying that those who report in the papers are reporting false, no. But if, especially in the social media, where we know issues of fake reports, and of course you all know because you are mainly journalists. So we have to be very, very circumspect in making pronouncements. But we have received such complaints, and we are looking into it. And we'll finally, in our final report, because this is preliminary or interim report, in our final report, when we will go into details and investigate, our reports will be very, very firm on some of these infractions. And if there are infractions, as you have alleged, definitely those who are affected will follow the process. Comparing 2018 and 2024, yes, there's some improvement. We cannot say there was no improvement at all between 2018 and 2024. There are improvements. But there may be areas where the improvements are not very significant from your observation. But these are things that we will look into the report of our pre-election technical assessment, because people from Commonwealth were here before the election. I think they left in December. And we came for the election proper. And we look at everything and come up with the final report. And we'll be able to address most of these issues that you have raised. Yes, let the technical person add something.
Thank you very much for that question. Just from the Secretariat perspective as well, to mention that each observer group that is sent by the Commonwealth Secretary General, the subsequent group will look at the recommendations made by the previous Commonwealth Observer Group, which is exactly what the current group will be doing in their final assessment. Secondly, as the Chair said in his concluding remarks, that each election offers an opportunity to take forward the positive gains made in each election cycle. The Commonwealth's approach is to work towards a whole of election cycle approach in supporting its member countries. And in that context, those recommendations made previously will be very much taken into account. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Noreen Janjua from Geo News. Sir, the International Observer and your team, the Commonwealth team, were there on election day, and you have witnessed the whole electoral process. It was going peacefully. Despite of having huge security threat, Election Commission of Pakistan has conducted the whole election peacefully and successfully. But today, in a few international newspapers, they are raising the question on transparency of election. What would you say about it?
Thank you. I think this is almost a similar question as the previous one, the issue of transparency. Just like quoting you said that the Election Commission conducted the election peacefully and transparently, but that some international media are still raising some issues. Of course, that is normal society. People cannot agree on the same terms. There must be some reasons for people to raise those issues, but they are sensitive issues. We, as election observers, are expected to be extremely neutral. And for us to make a comment that elections are not transparent, we must be very sure of our facts. And we're still looking into these facts. But if a media house makes us, we will also expect them to give instances. Because you may not use one incident in one out of number to make a concluding remark. But if they have done that and have done a proper analysis, definitely we'll look into it, and it will be reflected in the final report. Citizen observers too were there. They will also make their reports available. You, the journalists yourself, you were there because we met a number of you in the field. So one media house alone cannot condemn the elections. If elections are flawed, so many people will see it. Not just one media house that will see it. So, but if one media house alone makes a report, we also have to look into it. We can't be biased. We can't play politics with the elections of Pakistan. Individuals can do that. So that is our position. We can't say yes or no on the report that you are referring to, but we assure you that in our final report, we will look into all this.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Next question.
Thank you very much. I'm Matiullah Jana, a journalist working with the Neo Television. My question relates to the atmosphere and the sequence of events prior to elections, during which time large number of political activists were arrested, detained, and they were tried, including some political leaders convicted and sentenced to jail, including PTI leader Imran Khan. And then huge pressures on media, particularly journalists also, where we saw a large number of notices served on journalists just prior to polling day from the investigation authorities. Over 30 of journalists were served with notices by the FIA. And at the same time, we saw some decisions coming from judiciary, including the one that deprived PTI of its election symbol. So how do you see the state of independence of judiciary, independence of media, and due process of law, and particularly the prosecution of some of the political workers and leaders, and were the trials fair prior to election? And do you think all these related to the elections?
Thank you so much. If you read the report, which you will get a copy after this briefing, we'll actually dwell on that. The only issues you raise are in the report. In fact, especially the issue of detention of some political leaders, the issue of judgment removing the symbol of a particular political party. And I remember a very senior member of that party came to us physically during our interactions with stakeholders and has briefly asked, with all this, do you want this election to go on? You prefer these things to be looked at? We said, no, we want the elections to go on. They were very firm that they want the election to go on. And that makes me happy because they said they want the elections to go on. So there were issues. But those issues, they believe they could still go on with the election. But anything that the Supreme Court of a nation makes a pronouncement, you must be mindful about, because except you go through the legal processes. But we all agree that those issues, that's why we raise in our report. And in our final report, we go into a little more deep into it. There's the need for those areas to be looked into by the government. So I totally agree with you. If judgments are given that will affect particular parties or candidates, or like the issue of pressure on journalists, which we made comments and we commended the journalists that in spite of the pressure, they kept to their commitment to society. So we make reference. So if you go and read the report, we cover all those ones. They are concerns to all of us. But in terms of details, we use that one to really condemn the process. Because the processes that took place before the election, that's the pre-election environment which we commented on. But the election day proper, we felt that things were reasonably done. The issue of managing the results from polling units to where results are announced are the things that we will also look into it again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Any other question?
Hello, John Beaver from Feature Story News. We're an international news agency. The Americans have said they were concerned about allegations of interference in the electoral process. The UK has said they had serious concerns over the fairness and lack of inclusivity, but your language seems to be very different to that. Do you disagree with that of the feelings of the Americans and the UK and the UN?
Well, we, as Commonwealth observers, we don't agree or disagree with people who have their opinion. We send people across the country. So our report is based on our observation. On election day, it's based on our observation. The pre-election assessment is different as general issues of concern to society. But on that election day, we sent people across, and our report is based on what we observe on the ground. We are not dissuaded by what a newspaper, whether in the US or UK or Germany or France or China, reports, or even in Pakistan. But what we observe. But we made reference to those issues. If you listen to, we made reference to, if any issue that is raised, we made reference to. But we rely more on what we observe on the ground. It's unfortunate that this particular Pakistan 2024 election, Commonwealth appears to be the only international observer that sent observers across the country. In some countries, we have up to 4 or more international observers that sent people across. So at the end of the day, you can compare what one group say and what the other group did not say. But this one appears to be the only group. Well, the citizen observers, that is the indigenous observers, they had more observers. They had about 6,000 observers from what they told us. They have also given their reports this morning. I was told that at 10 a.m. So I have no idea about what they said, but you can also listen to them because they are citizen observers. But we report based on what we observe. We are not disagreeing. They must have a reason to make those statements. But we keep to what we observe on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Any other question?
Thank you. Shahid Qureshi here, freelance journalist. When we dig out the Pakistani elections, we see that full of irregularities and rigging. And when we compare the last 2 elections, what do you think that when we compare the last 2 elections with the recent election, do you think that this election is less or more rigged and irregularities?
Thank you so much. The issue of comparing, it takes a lot of depth research work that within this short period, we concluded these elections last night. And, so, on the 8th, yes. So it's difficult for us to now, of course, for you to compare 2 previous elections and this, you need to do some text research work. Because, you see, the observation of elections are based on different parameters. It's like interviewing somebody for employment. There are different areas you look at. Somebody may observe one incident during the election day or before the election and use that single incident to condemn or praise the electoral process. But for international observers, we have different parameters that we look at before we make some reasonable conclusions. So we cannot tell you that 2013, 2018, 2024, that 2018 was better and 2024. But what we can say is that in terms of the legal framework and some other key issues, for the purpose of managing the elections, there's some improvement. And we only encourage the country to do more. And when we send our final report, we'll isolate those clear issues where there's some improvement and mention it. And where we need further improvement, we'll also mention it. But for the preliminary reports, we will not be in position. We have no time to do that depth research to do a major comparison of 2013, 2018, 2024.
Thank you very much, Chair. Any other question? No question. Thank you very much for coming. We've come to the end of our press conference. Thank you.